All right, welcome back. Today we have one of those pesky educational streams with the help of our old friend Wurzel Gummidge, the sovereign citizen, who luckily in today's video he's at least wearing a wife beater shirt. He didn't have one in the last video where he was gleefully predicting a race war. So, but first, bit of a road ahead. So, as some of you, I'm sure, know, some don't follow the delete laws saga. Um, but he for the last 2 years, he's been selling his trifold of nonsense, indestructible trifold. And he recently came out with his Fifth Amendment card. Well, I've joked that I'm going to do a video parodying his Fifth Amendment card, and I only need 4 words to do it. Well, I've decided I might actually not parody and do a legitimate Fifth Amendment card of my own, but there still needs to be a design made and all that fun stuff and various other things. So that's in the works. It's going to be a bit. So be on the lookout for that, though. But back to the subject of today's video. So, like I said, we're going to the never ending gift that is Wurzel Gummidge, the sovereign citizen, or some of you may call him Lucky, the sovereign citizen. Um, and he's going to aid us in debunking one of the main sovereign citizen misinformation tropes, just complete nonsense. And I have not watched a single second of this video. As you can see, it's 22 minutes and 26 seconds. We'll see how far I get into the video because once he starts repeating himself, there's just no point. But for those of you who have followed sovereign citizen videos for a while, and well, I always forget this at the start of the stream, but for those of you who are new here, I'm Joe, and I'm an attorney licensed to practice in the state of Utah. And, fascinated with sovereign citizens and just the psycho babble that they spew. And one of the main things that they do is they say there's only 2 jurisdictions allowed. You can see it's the title of this video we're debunking, with excellent grammar from old Wurzel here. There is only 2 jurisdictions allowed to be at play in America/USA. Well, that's just patently false. So going out on a limb, he's going to say courts only have jurisdiction for admiralty maritime jurisdiction and common law. But that's false. It's so far from reality that it just it it boggles the mind. And I don't know if it's they don't understand punctuation, they see what they want to see and then they stop reading. But either way, let's jump into the video and hear this moron say exactly what I just said, and then we'll keep going.
If you will all notice that everything that's written down on paper at the courthouses, in the jails, uh, for the other things, everything that they want in all caps, like the words VPTA, expired vehicle registration, that's in all caps.
And that's not some sort of code. There is no meaning to that. It just makes it easier to read. If you're scanning a document, you come to all caps. Hey, there's the name. I can stop scanning. It's a visual cue so that you can see it easier. And I think it harkens back even to there used to be a time when they had actual forms. They didn't fill out the court paperwork or your birth certificate or whatever on a computer. They'd put the pre-printed form into a typewriter and type it out in caps, and that was it. There's no magic to the all caps, as I'm sure you all know.
That's admiralty language. Uh, the language.
Okay, he says all caps is admiralty language. I would love to see any citation for that. I mean, he can't because there isn't one, but I just don't know where it comes from other than delusion. Oops, it didn't hit play.
That they use is not a normal English language. It's in all caps. It's they're working outside of our common laws using all caps letters. That's why your name's in all caps. They taken you out of the jurisdiction of common law. See, there's two jurisdictions. I learned this from a guy who has a channel, and his channel is named Abraxas.
You'll notice he learned it from a guy with a channel called Abraxas. He didn't learn it from a lawyer. He didn't learn it from a judge. He didn't learn it from a legislator, a governor, a magistrate. It's a guy with a channel called Abraxas. Sounds good. Sign me up.
All A's, Abraxas. That's an X. And then, a regular S at the end. We're being ruled over, judged by judges. They're not really judges. They're misinforming you on who they really are. They're the ones spreading all the misinformation. If you go up.
Oh, well, so when I said, this moron didn't hear it from a judge or a lawyer, well, it's because they're the ones spreading misinformation. But Abraxas on YouTube, hey, he's nothing but the truth. Maybe it's because you, Wurzel, you want what he's bought, what he's selling. So, the judge is saying what you don't want. Well, that's misinformation. Some fake guru selling snake oil, that's the stuff.
To a judge, and you require the judge, him or her, to show a valid state-issued ID of some sort, because they're not driving a vehicle or anything, that states, like we have an ID that states who we are, and our name's in all caps and everything, and it states who we are. Well, they need to do that to us, or we need to ask, require them to do that for us. We are supposed to also require the one that is requiring us to show proof of ID.
Then have the legislature pass a law. Problem solved. If the legislature passes a law saying, hey, judges must show ID upon demand to litigants, but you haven't done that, so you're just saying they need, I want them to show ID is what you're saying, not they must, because what force of law do you have?
I got plants in here, so I got gnats. So, oh, but where
And I often get comments about his unfinished ceiling and the fluorescent grow lights there. Looking closely, those do look like tomato leaves to me, but they're kind of out of focus in the background. But that's my guess.
under admiralty law, and and that's the way, you know, that it is. There's two jurisdictions, two in this country that's allowed to be used in all courts. All courts, local and federal. And that's a shame it's used in local. It should always be federal. But they use admiralty law in local courts, traffic courts. The judge is the captain, so he gets to be prosecutor and judge.
No, that's separation of powers, numbnuts. The prosecutor comes from the executive branch. The judge is in the judicial branch. I mean, if the judge is acting as a prosecutor, well, that's what sovereign citizens complain about all the time. You're practicing law from the bench.
Judge, and even put you to death if he or she just feels that you're just a danger to society.
No, a judge can't just put you to death if they feel you're a danger to society. Number one, the legislature has to say these are the crimes for which a death sentence is available. And the Supreme Court has said only capital murder and treason, But a judge, well, a judge can, if you choose a bench trial, can sentence you to death. But if you choose a jury trial, it's the jury that decides if you're a danger to society and should receive the death penalty.
Got to keep the public safe. So if we deem you a threat, even though you've never hurt a person at all ever, I could just put you to death.
If you've murdered someone, you've hurt someone.
Or put you in prison the rest of your life and keep you away from the public, keep the public safe. You don't have to be a murderer. You don't have to be a thief. You could be just a regular person who's against them.
Once again, show me the law. Show me the law that says you can be put to death for a traffic infraction, for theft, for anything. Show me the law. It doesn't exist.
And fighting for your rights. 18 U.S. codes. You can just mention that. I know about 18 U.S. codes, and it would be. I think it would be in the best interest, with all due respect, of the city and the county and the state to move for a motion of 18 U.S. Code 248, which.
So just mention 18 U.S. Code. So mention that there is a federal criminal code, because that's what Title 18 of the U.S. Code is. That's the criminal code in its entirety. So just mention that. But once again, this moron doesn't believe in codes. He's a sovereign citizen. And he says the only jurisdiction is Admiralty, Maritime, and common law. So 18 U.S. Code, anything is statutory law. So what court can even hear 18 USC 248 or 241 or 242 or anything? Because that's not common law. So by your own fan fiction, there is no court anywhere that can hear that. Nowhere. So why even bring it up?
Which is a dismissal of their case on the grounds that, my rights are being violated. And when they hear that, they have to do it. They have to. Because
No.
if it comes to find out that your rights are being violated, and they know they're violating your rights, when you bring that up, and you bring up the 18 U.S. codes 241, 242 that my those are being violated by.
Those are codes.
Were violated by the deputies. Were violated by that cop that pulled me over. And are being violated by you right now because I'm in here. When I'm in court, my rights are already being violated. I'm not supposed to be in there. I'm not a murderer. I'm not a thief. A criminal out there, a thief out there making money. I'm not an organized thief. I'm not involved in any kind of crime. That's a real crime that creates a victim. People don't want to understand. Real crimes are crimes where you go out there and with malice intent, you want to. You're going.
No. It doesn't require malice. There are crimes that are per se violations. Basically, no real mens rea. The speeding. If you're speeding, you're guilty. Or at least can be found guilty, whether you realized you were speeding or not. There's negligence, there's recklessness. It's not malice is the only mens rea. That's dumb.
Want to do it. That's malice intent. You've thought about it and you're ready. You're going to do it. You hurt someone, murder someone because you're doing it with malice intent. That's murder. You're not doing it in the name of justice. In the right way. But you go out there. I mean, but those are the real crimes: theft, murder, destroying other people's property, hurting other people. And it's all done with malice intent. You thought about doing it, and you said I'm going to do it. Malice intent.
Okay, that's about my limit for how much I can listen to this moron and his, to quote Judge Middleton, jabberwocky. It's ridiculous. And the thing is, I'll show you in a few minutes, because sovereign citizens like to say, as you just heard him say, the only crimes are where there's victim, because that's the common law crime with a victim. Except as I'll show you in a few minutes, at most levels, this isn't true every state, but common law crimes have been abolished. There are only statutory crimes. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So let's go straight to the U.S. Constitution, which is where they stop reading after half a line to determine there's only two jurisdictions, Admiralty Maritime and common law. So let's switch the screen. Okay. So here we have Article 3 of the United States Constitution. The entirety of Article 3 deals with the judicial branch of government. Article 1 deals with the let's see, the legislative branch with Congress. Article 2. Yeah, sorry. Let me. I've got it pulled up. So either way, Article 1 is the judicial branch. Article 2 is the executive. Article 3 is the judiciary, as you see here. So Article 3, Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in 1 Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. So there's the Supreme Court, and Congress from time to time has said there shall be district courts. There shall be, and that's an inferior court to the Supreme Court. There shall be a court of appeals as an intermediary court, a court of basically you have a right to appeal to the Court of Appeals. You have to petition the Supreme Court. But so that's Section 1. The Article 3, Section 2. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution. So let me. Yeah. So Section 2, this is all of what we need. This describes jurisdiction. This is the constitutional jurisdiction. So the judicial power, and that means the judicial, the jurisdiction for United States courts. Because bear in mind, this is just establishing the jurisdiction for federal courts. So the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity. Law is, well, in civil constructs, law is something that can be fixed in money. Equity is something that can be fixed by forcing someone to do something. Criminal law, that's different. But so in law and equity arising under this Constitution, so that's constitutional jurisdiction. So if you have a legal question, if you have a legal dispute arising under the Constitution, federal courts have absolute jurisdiction to hear that. The laws of the United States. So federal courts have jurisdiction to hear questions of federal law. So they can hear cases of federal criminal law, of federal securities law, tax law, you name it. If it's in the U.S. code, that's a U.S. law, federal law, and federal courts can hear it. And treaties made or which shall be made under their authority. So federal courts get to hear questions of treaty. So to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls. So that's basically treaty law as well. And then here's part of what sovereign citizens get. Federal courts get to hear all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction. They get to hear cases where, so controversies to which the United States shall be a party. So if the United States sues someone, they're a party, so it's federal court. If I sue the United States is a party. It's in federal court. If the state of Utah sues the United States, it's in federal court. So to controversies between two or more states, federal court. And this one's kind of interesting because in controversies between two or more states, let's say the state of Utah sues the state of Nevada over water rights because, there are aquifers that are cross-border. If the state of Utah sues the state of Nevada over those water rights, it's not heard in federal district court. It's heard in the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction when states sue other states. So, and then federal courts have jurisdiction when there's a controversy between a state and citizens of another state. Or you guys have seen this one before, between citizens of different states. That's our old friend diversity jurisdiction, right there in the Constitution. Federal courts have jurisdiction between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or citizen thereof and foreign states, citizens or subjects. So if I sue a Canadian and the federal court is somehow able to have personal jurisdiction over that Canadian, it's in federal court, not state court. So let's see. So those are the types of cases that federal courts have jurisdiction over. And then it goes on, in all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls, and those in which a state shall be a party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction, like I said earlier. And now you may remember me saying where one state sues another state, it's the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. This just says, and those in which a state shall be a party. Well, that's our friend, the 11th Amendment, that, you don't actually get to sue states because they have sovereign immunity. And so I can't sue the state of Utah. I can't sue the state of Nevada. They have sovereign immunity. So it really is only states suing other states. If I need to sue the state of Utah, I'm either suing the governor in his official capacity, the attorney general in his official capacity. You get the drill. So in those cases, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as Congress shall make. So Congress can say, hey, we think that the Supreme Court needs to have original jurisdiction under these other cases that the Constitution doesn't explicitly grant. So, and then we have here, the trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, shall be by jury, and such trial shall be held in the state where the said crimes shall have been committed, but when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such place or places as the Congress may by law have directed. So if I commit a crime on a ship in international waters that is flying the US flag, hey, I've committed a crime that can be prosecuted by the US government, but I'm not in any state. So Congress gets to decide where that trial will take place. So, but we're not done yet. We're not done. We've got more of the Constitution to look at. So I told you about that we had Article 1 of the Constitution, which Article 1, Section 1 Congress, Article 1, Section 2, the House of Representatives, Section 3, the Senate, Section 4, elections, Section 5, powers and duties of Congress. So I have open Section 8, powers of Congress. And I am specifically looking at Congress has the ability to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Now, why do I point this out? It's in Article 3, it said there shall be one Supreme Court and other such inferior courts as Congress shall from time to time create. So it's already there. But the thing is, not only does Congress specifically have the authority in Article 1, not just Article 3, but there's what's called Article 1 courts. And on my phone, I've got a list, because there's even Article 4 tribunals, which are United States territorial courts, but we're not going to worry about that because we're not actually looking at anything in territories. But so let's just go through a list first of Article 3 courts. We've got the Supreme Court. We've got the Courts of Appeals and the District Courts. We've got the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court of Review, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. You've in recent years heard of the FISA courts. We've got the U.S. Court of International Trade, the U.S. Alien Terrorist Removal Court, and the Judicial Panel on Multi-District Litigation. But beyond that, we have the Article 1 courts. And these are, well, there's some controversy over their constitutionality, but they're created under Article 1, the power of Congress to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. So first off, we have the D.C. Court of Appeals and the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. Now, those are a little bit different than what you're thinking, because we have the Article 3 D.C. Court of Appeals. That's a circuit court that, just like Utah is in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals and California is in the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, there's the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, but there's also the D.C. Court of Appeals and the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, and those are basically the local courts. Since it's a federal district, it's federal court, but local federal court. So that is where you go for traffic tickets if you're pulled over in DC. So then we have the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces and the Army Court of Criminal Appeals, the Navy, Marine Court of Criminal Appeals, Air Force and Coast Guard. We've got the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims and the Board of Veterans Appeals. We've got the Court of Indian Offenses. We've got the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, Trademark Trial and Appeal Board, U.S. International Trade Commission, the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. That's if you're suing the federal government for money damages. It's in the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. We've got boards of contract appeals, and that's Armed Services Board of Contract Appeals, Civilian Board of Contract Appeals, Office of Dispute Resolution and Acquisition, Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals, Tennessee Valley Authority Board of Contract Appeals. Then we've got some of the big boys. We've got the United States Tax Court, is an Article 1 court. U.S. Bankruptcy Court, U.S. magistrate judges. So they don't have lifetime tenure. Their terms are 7 or 14 years. I can't remember. But either way, so our friend hearing the Scofield versus Guillard is an Article 1 judge. The Social Security Administration hearings, and it just a few others. But so there's so many different United States courts and tribunals that each have their own slice of jurisdiction, but it's all authorized under that Article 3, laws of the United States. It's just Congress says, well, these laws maybe should be heard in these other courts. But then, like, let's say bankruptcy court. Well, if you don't like the result of your bankruptcy hearing, you can take a de novo appeal to the U.S. District Court in that district. So you can have the Article 3 court make a ruling on your bankruptcy and take it all the way up to the Supreme Court. So it like, just at the federal level, I hope this gives you an idea of just how wrong these sovereign citizens are when they say, well, there's only common law and admiralty jurisdiction. We've seen constitutional proof that that's not the case. But what about your traffic ticket? I've got you covered there too. So let's jump to the next screen. And here I have the Utah State Constitution, Article 8, the Judicial Department. And specifically, we're going to first look at Section 3, jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction to issue all extraordinary writs and to answer questions of state law certified by a court of the United States. The Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction over all other matters to be exercised as provided by statute, and power to issue all writs and orders necessary for the exercise of the Supreme Court's jurisdiction or the complete determination of any case. So that's the Supreme Court's jurisdiction. And you may be wondering about this portion. And to answer questions of state law certified by a court of the United States. Well, in determining issues of state law, the state Supreme Court has final say, or at least as far as judicial say. So let's say you are pulled over and, well, no. Either way, you have, okay, I've got it. No. So you enter into a contract. Well, I enter into a contract. I'm here in Utah. I enter into a contract with someone in Nevada. And it's subject to the laws of the state of Mexico. It has the jurisdiction selection clause in the contract. This contract shall be governed by the laws of the state of Utah and shall be litigated in Utah state or federal courts. So there's a breach of contract. So we sue in Utah federal court because there's diversity jurisdiction. Well, if there's an issue of the state contract law, so the federal court isn't just deciding if there has been a breach of contract, but if they're deciding interpretation of state contract law, the federal court doesn't get to do that. They ask the state Supreme Court, the Utah Supreme Court, hey, can you give us clarification on this? Even the federal Supreme Court has to defer to the state Supreme Court on questions of state law. So that's kind of a fun one. But going on, we have jurisdiction of district court and other courts. This is Article 8, Section 5 of the Utah Constitution. The district court shall have original jurisdiction in all matters except as limited by this Constitution or by statute, and power to issue all extraordinary writs. The district court shall have appellate jurisdiction as provided by statute, and that statute provides appellate jurisdiction to state district courts over justice court matters. And then the jurisdiction of all other courts, both original and appellate, shall be provided by statute. And except for matters filed originally with the Supreme Court, there shall be in all cases an appeal of right from the court of original jurisdiction to a court with appellate jurisdiction over the cause. So that's saying, hey, if you don't like the decision in the district court, you can, as a right, appeal to the Court of Appeals. But then you've got to ask the Supreme Court for permission to appeal that. But we're going to see in a minute that the Court of Appeals has original jurisdiction in just a little bitty teeny sliver. And so if the Court of Appeals issues that, then you get to appeal that to the Supreme Court by right, because, hey, you get to go up by right from the Court of Original Jurisdiction. So that's the Utah Constitution. But let's go to the Utah Code, because we're not done yet. Wait. That's where we just were. That's the one I want. So we're here in the Utah Code. So Title 78A of the Utah Code is the judiciary and judicial administration. And we have jurisdiction of the district court. And it goes a little bit more in detail, but except as otherwise provided by the Utah Constitution or by statute, the district court has original jurisdiction in all matters civil and criminal. There you go. That's not admiralty law. That's not common law. It's all matters civil and criminal. So civil, that's common law civil, common law torts, statutory civil issues, whatever. The district court has it, unless otherwise provided by statute. And so let's look at why they might not. Gotta back out of, we're specifically in district court. Let's look at Supreme Court. Supreme Court jurisdiction. The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction to answer questions of state law certified by court a court of the United States. We just discussed that. The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction to issue all extraordinary writs and authority to issue all writs and process necessary to carry into effect its orders, judgments, and decrees, or in aid of its jurisdiction. And then it has appellate jurisdiction over all of these other things. Let's look at the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals jurisdiction. The Court of Appeals has jurisdiction to issue all extraordinary writs and to issue all writs and process necessary. So basically, if you get an extraordinary writ from the Court of Appeals, that can be appealed to the Supreme Court by right, is my understanding. I've never done it, so that's my understanding. But other than that, the Court of Appeals has appellate jurisdiction, including jurisdiction of interlocutory appeals over all of these things. And then we've got Business and Chancery Court, Juvenile Court. But here's our friend, the Justice Court. So let's look at the jurisdiction. So, except for an offense for which the district court has original jurisdiction, or an offense for which the juvenile court has original jurisdiction, a justice court has original jurisdiction over Class B and Class C misdemeanors, violations, and ordinances and infractions committed within the justice court's territorial jurisdiction by an individual who is 18 years or older. So you get a speeding ticket. That's not admiralty, maritime. It's not common law. But bingo, here in the state of Utah, because that speeding ticket is an infraction, the Justice Court has original jurisdiction. And so there's West Valley Justice Court also does Class A misdemeanors, but so that's jurisdiction. That's what we have. But let's click into the Utah Criminal Code. General provisions. So in the state of Utah, Utah Code 76-1-105, common law crimes abolished. There is no such thing as a common law crime in the state of Utah. So common law crimes are abolished, and no conduct is a crime unless made so by this code, other applicable statute, or ordinance. There are no common law crimes. So when Wurzel Gummidge, the sovereign citizen, says, well, these are the only crimes, unless the state of Utah says so, it's not a crime. And it's a crime if the state of Utah says so and it hasn't been overturned on appeal by some other court. That's where we are. So I think that's really all we needed to cover, because we've seen where jurisdiction comes from in the Constitution and, well, in the state and federal constitutions, and at least in state law. Oh, I know. I was going to do one other thing. So I looked all of this up beforehand. But in case you're wondering, I haven't looked at this one bit, but let's Google, if I can spell properly. Lots of our cases come out of the state of Oregon. So let's look at the Oregon Constitution. and we'll look at I don't like this website, but we need Article 7, the amended Article 7, Judicial Branch. So we're only to Article 2, 3, 4. Five, 6. Wait. Yeah, 6. Okay, Article 7, the judicial branch. So that's probably just Section 1. So the judicial power of the state of Oregon shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such other courts as may from time to time be created by law. The judges of the Supreme Court and other courts shall be elected by the legal voters of the state or of their respective districts for a term of 6 years, and shall receive such compensation as may be provided by law, which compensation shall not be diminished during the term for which they are elected. So Oregon basically has their Article 7, Section 1 reads an awful lot like Article 3, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution. It establishes the Supreme Court and other such courts as may from time to time be created by law. Okay, Supreme Court's original jurisdiction, Article 7, Section 2. The court's jurisdiction and judicial system of Oregon, except so far as expressly changed by this amendment, shall remain as present constituted until otherwise provided by law. But the Supreme Court may, in its own discretion, take original jurisdiction in mandamus, quo warranto, and habeas corpus proceedings. So those are the exceptional writs that Utah's Supreme Court can take original jurisdiction over. But so that was the amended Article 7. Let's look at the original Article 7. Jurisdiction is Section 6. So the Supreme Court shall have jurisdiction only to revise the final decisions of the circuit courts, and every cause shall be tried, and every decision shall be made by those judges only, or a majority of them who did not try the cause or make the decision in the circuit court. Circuit court. The circuit's courts shall be held twice at least in each year in each county organized for judicial purposes by jurisdiction of circuit courts. All judicial power, authority, and jurisdiction not vested by this Constitution or by laws consistent thereof, exclusively in some other court, shall belong to the circuit courts, and they shall have appellate jurisdiction and supervisory control over the county courts and all other inferior courts, officers, and tribunals. So remember, in the amended Article 7, it said, yeah, unless we've specifically amended it here, the original stands. So that is the jurisdiction of the circuit court. That's why they still have to have the original and amended in the Constitution. So I clearly I could have chosen an easier state. I mean, Utah was real easy, but we got there. You know, that's the jurisdiction in Oregon. And then, hey, even jurisdiction of county courts. The county court shall have the jurisdiction pertaining to probate courts and the boards of county commissioners and other powers and duties and such civil jurisdiction not exceeding the amount of $500 and such criminal jurisdiction not extending to death or imprisonment in the penitentiary and may be prescribed by law. So basically, county courts can hear misdemeanors because misdemeanors are generally, I'm not going to speak for Oregon because some states have weird class A through G felonies and whatever misdemeanors, but generally a misdemeanor is punishable by under a year, felonies over a year. And so if it's over a year, you go to prison. Under a year, you're in the county jail. So if it's not extending to death or imprisonment in a penitentiary, that's a misdemeanor. So basically, they get to hear all misdemeanors they have jurisdiction over. But the circuit court has appellate jurisdiction over misdemeanors. So I hope this has demonstrated when you're dealing with a sovereign citizen and they're spouting nonsense about jurisdiction, you can show them where to find jurisdiction. Because, for traffic cases, federal court doesn't have jurisdiction because it's under state law. So the state court has jurisdiction, and the state constitution and state code provides which court has jurisdiction. Same with most crimes. Unless it's a federal crime, the state court is going to be the one with jurisdiction over it. And I've shown you how to find where that jurisdiction comes from. So, yeah. It just, this has been a pet peeve of mine for a long time, ever since I've started watching sovereign citizen videos. I mean, we're talking years before I started my channel. And I've been meaning to make a video like this, going into what jurisdiction actually is, and just seeing this moron's video gave me the opportunity. But you'll see it in almost every sovereign citizen in court video, but you'll see it in a lot of the traffic stop videos too. So just next time you see it, you can say, hey, look, moron, this is where jurisdiction is. This is the specific jurisdiction you are under. And judges are getting better at this, especially in the traffic cases. How many judges have you heard say, when asked what jurisdiction are we under, they'll say, we are under the jurisdiction of the Michigan Constitution and the laws enacted under the Michigan Constitution. Because that's the truth. That is what the jurisdiction is. So they don't spell it out, article and section, but that's what it is. So with that, please do all the YouTubey stuff. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you very soon for the next one. Thanks for joining me for this rather long-winded rant. Bye-bye.